My name is PREYE Oseke. I'm the Oil and Gas to the Executive Chairman of Southern Ijaw Local Government area. Presently, I'm the one coordinating the Southern Ijaw Oil and Gas Task Force. The Oil and Gas Task Force is, the Southern Ijaw Oil and Gas Task Force is a product of law, because when Chairman Chief Ogbe-led was elected, the Executive Chairman of Southern Ijaw, he deemed it necessary that the menace of pipeline vandalism, oil theft, local refining of petroleum products within Southern Ijaw Local Government area should be dealt with. It's a known thing in the whole of Nigeria that Nigeria operates a mono economy. The crude oil happens to be the only source, the primary source of revenue to our nation. And anything that affects oil production tends to affect the revenue profile of the nation, the state, and even the local government. Being a government at the grassroots that is closer to the people, it was known that this menace is not only just affecting the economy of the nation, but also the livestock in the community, the aquatic life. Our rivers are all damaged because of the processes to which local refining of petroleum products are carried out. Also, crude oil theft causes heavy amount of spillages in our environment. If you go to our communities like Igbo-Motoro, you notice that the entire forest is damaged. You can't even access water, which was our only source of drinking water. The river, which was our only source of drinking water, has been polluted because of these activities. Now, as a government, no government will fold its hands and look at this happening. Tying it to the governor's number one focal point in the restoration administration. Honorable Henry Sirake Dixon, the executive governor of Bayelsa State, has zero tolerance for crime and criminality in our state. And this is one of the cardinal objectives of governance in Bayelsa State. And as we believe, at the local government level, it is the responsibility of the chairman to ensure that anything that has to do with crime and criminality is dealt with. Now, it is a product of this that the Southern Ijaw Local Government chairman deemed it necessary to come up with different solutions to how best to address the oil theft menace, pipeline vandalism, and every other kind of activities that is affecting the oil industry in the local government. As a matter of fact, one of the first steps that was taken by the executive chairman is the engagement system where community leaders, chiefs, paramount rulers, CDC chairmen, youth leadership, youth presidents were invited to Poroma, and there was a proper engagement. Community leaders were asked on the way forward on how best to address this menace. Now, some key factors were identified. Of course, the social problem, which is a problem that has to do with the whole country, which is unemployment. It is not just tied to Southern Ijaw as a local government or Bayelsa as a state. Unemployment is something that is all over Nigeria. It was also one of the things that was identified in that engagement meeting. It was also identified that, some of the issues like non-implementation of MOUs by multinationals was also brought to the front burner by these community leaders that government must engage the multinationals to see how best we could fast track the processes that leads to full implementation of MOUs. Now, so many other factors were also brought to the front burner on this engagement meeting, which was more or less like the first step to be taken in the various solutions that that are to be explored by the executive chairman to ensure that this menace of oil theft, bunkering activities is dealt with at the local government level. Now, having engaged the community leaders, it now got to the point where we needed to ensure that we engage some of these bunkers who more or less tend to see the activities of illegal oil bunkering as something of their rights, because some of them believe that government is not doing enough for them. Some of them have this perception that the oil belongs to them, and as such, taking the crude oil is as good as taking what belongs to them. But government has to tell them that the crude oil that you have there on your pipelines, on your wellheads, the oil facilities that you have in your communities, they belong to the federal government. It is the sales of crude oil that brings revenue to the nation, that brings revenue to the states and to the local government. So any activity that is not lawful, that affects the production of crude oil, tends to affect the revenue profile of all the 3 tiers of government. And as such, government will want that illegal bunkering activities should be stopped. I tell you, in that engagement meeting with some of these bunkers, we got to understand that most of them do bunkering activities for as more or less like a source of livelihood. And if you are to take away somebody's source of livelihood, it means that government must design a framework to which an alternative lawful source of livelihood must be put forward to some of these young men to explore. And as such, we tried to talk to some of them, and most of them agreed to work with government to ensure that if they are working with government to fight oil theft, to fight bunkering activities, it means that from that will now become a paid employment for them. No matter how small the amount could be as allowances or salaries that will be given to these persons who have, we refer to them as repentant local bunkers. It will now become an allowance that will be used to service their daily livelihood. And I tell you, the extent to which these young men, after agreeing to work with government, to which they have shown commitment, it's really, really overwhelming. Because there is no pretense of it. These young men came out wholeheartedly. They are working with government to ensure that everything that has to do with oil bunkering activities is dealt with in Southern Ijaw Local Government area. Of course, not forgetting the fact that we also had some engagement meetings with some of the leaders of the multinationals, where it's of immense benefit to our communities. Because looking at it holistically, you will discover that it is these operations that drive the revenues that come to our states. That's on one aspect. Again, though they're at a minimal level, there are also some community persons that are staffs of these companies. There are also some community persons that are benefiting at different levels. Some are surveillance contractors, some are community contractors, and again, without these operations, some of the infrastructures like school renovations, maybe health centers, and sometimes concrete jetties, and sometimes scholarships, which is beyond which is not an infrastructure but a kind of human capital development initiatives that are initiated by these multinationals. Without a proper steady production, the multinationals may not be able to fulfill some of these obligations they have to government, and at the same time they have to communities. So engaging these people who see bunkering as their right, illegal bunkering activities as a right, and fighting it became a very, very serious thing that government must take up immediately. Given this scenario, no government will fold its hands. Having been charged by the executive governor of the state at the local government level, the chairman of Southern Ijaw, Chief Ogbe-led, has to ensure that everything that has to do with bunkering activities is dealt with. Now, when the Southern Ijaw Oil and Gas Task Force was inaugurated on the 7th of May, we immediately swing into action. We had to go into the creeks to talk to community leaders that government has decided that no one should continue with bunkering activities. We proclaimed in communities, through some community leaders, through some youth leaders, Communities were told that from this day forward, if anybody is caught doing bunkering activities, you'll be arrested and you'll be prosecuted. Now, in doing that, we had already identified some flashpoints where bunkering activities are very, very predominant. Areas like Ikiembiri Azuzoma axis. If you come forward a little, you meet the Tebidaba axis. You see so much of a little of bunkering activities. If you move forward, you get to Igbomotoro axis, which is more like the bunkering hub. You push forward, you get to the Diebu axis, the Lagos Benin axis, and also a place called Otuo. Another is Okubotuo, and towards the boundary with Brass Local Government, you have a place called Maison. These are critical areas that were identified as flashpoints in bunkering activities. So as a strategy, we decided to first and foremost go around to identify these points where bunkering activity, the pipelines are opened, where crude oil is being sourced from illegally. We started by working with a subcontractor that has a clamping badge on the creeks. We moved, after identifying the points, we moved on from a place called the Ikiembiri axis. We started clamping from the Ikiembiri axis, moved to Tebidaba, from Tebidaba to Igbomotoro, from Igbomotoro to Lagos Benin, from Lagos Benin to Tuo. And I tell you, so far so good. While this was being done, the testimony was very obvious that production had, in a very slow pace, started increasing as the clamping activities were going on. Production started moving forward. While the clamping was also going on, we also started to do what they call engagement with community leaders, and community leaders were invited to say, let them key into government decision to ensure that bunkering activities is stopped. Because we noticed that people living in that kind of environment are healthy. Now it is government's responsibility to ensure that not just stopping the bunkering activities, but government must do what is necessary. What is necessary is as good as engaging in projects that will touch the lives of people. I tell you, the chairman of Southern Ijaw Local Government area, Chief Ogbe-led, is coming up with some packages like intervention projects, just like I mentioned, like health centers and also markets, because we understand that some women are also involved in the buying and selling of these locally refined petroleum products. Now, if market stalls are built and some fund of soft loans are given to some of these community women, they will tend to use these monies to engage themselves in manual trading, small-scale tradings like buying of plantain, fishes, which for now, at the moment, because of bunkering activities in our rivers, you hardly can even find any kind of fish. But we know that if bunkering activities is stopped, and there is some level of remediation work on our environment, we believe that the fishes will be back, the environment will be saved for our future generation. Now, when these empowerment schemes come up, we're also looking at not just the women and the community infrastructure projects, we're also looking at some of the youths who come up with projects like skill acquisition programs. Some of them will be trained on welding activities, some of them will be trained on fitting, scaffolding. These are trades, professions that are tied to the oil industry. It means that if there are any operational projects that takes place in any of the oil facilities, our community people will have the technical knowledge to be able to serve as workmen in these communities. Now, moving forward, now after engaging these community leaders and explaining to them the need for us to synergize, work together and deal with this menace, we also got to the point where, of course, when government comes up with a policy, we don't expect that 100% of this policy will be embraced in the communities. Some persons still believe that government is just coming up to say this, they are not serious. But there have been other interventions from different, even the multinationals had made some efforts to ensure that these bunkering activities is stopped. So we tend to meet some defiance with some of these bunkers who said they are not going to embrace government's initiatives. So they still went ahead with their bunkering activities. So that's what led to the next stage of the task force activities, which is the destruction of any illegal bunkering facility in our communities, in our forests, on the creeks. As I speak today, that is the phase that we have. The task force, in collaboration